How we doing, people? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where you're listening from today, but I hope you're having a great day or you have had a great day. Doing something a bit different today. So for the first time, I'm doing a bit of solo Louis on the podcast. And I'm thinking I'm going to start like a new name for this kind of thing, just a little bit of me personally as well. Not just the guests and everything, but so yeah, probably going to start like a new playlist or something for it. But I wanted to talk today about tell a little story of mine. So, how did I get into podcasting? Because I had no podcast experience really prior to this. And I just sort of went with the flow of the whole thing. But it started in a really, really funny little way. So I'd actually heard a Gary V video, and he mentioned about someone starting like a 5 minute podcast where you just flash out just a few questions to celebrities to kind of get more in the whole get into their busy schedules a lot easier. And I had this idea, and one day I'd way before I'd even kind of started on making this idea a thing, man, I made this story, and it was like a promotional story for Jocko Willink and a few other accounts of people that I've been looking at recently and kind of benefiting from looking at their content, and just learned loads and felt motivated from it. So I kind of did a nice thing for these people. And at that time, actually, one of these people called T Mac Zink, you will remember him as Pat McNamara from episode one. Very, very cool guy, and about 400,000 followers probably at the time. So clearly, for a first episode of no prior podcast experience, this is a big fish on the line. And he replied to this story I made and said a nice big thank you. And I knew I had to take the opportunity and pop the question. So I did ask if he'd be interested in doing a podcast. Now, uh, I clearly didn't mention it was the first episode, and I made a big point of that. I made it sound like a very established podcast. So sorry, T Mac. Yeah, it was a good episode though, man. So going from there, he actually said yes. Clearly, as we had an episode and we started planning this whole thing. And obviously, I'm kind of scrambling around trying to get hold of a microphone, trying to think like, how am I going to do this? Am I going to use Zoom, or what am I going to use to record this podcast, which could potentially be life changing? Because I mean, when you first start out and you've got zeros all around in the metrics, you start thinking, well, damn, I'm probably going to have to start with someone pretty low key, not someone who's got, the influence of 400,000 followers or something. So yeah, pretty crazy. And I'm just running around like a mad dog, just trying to get hold of something. So I rustled everything together, and I spent probably about 2 hours just preparing before this podcast. I was so nervous. Like I had all my scripts ready. I had all the systems, like literally rehearsal after rehearsal. So just literally shaking, man. I remember it was a great experience in the whole thing, to be honest. And what a way to kind of jump into the deep end and just learn how to swim as you go. So that was great. But anyway, so the funny story comes now. So we get to like the last 5 minutes before this podcast is meant to start. Yeah. And so we have the storm outside, and obviously that's not exactly ideal. And at the time, we were having our roof redone, and we have a thatch roof because we live in like this little cottage. And and the water was leaking through because they were redoing this thatch, right? And obviously it hit the electrics somewhere along the line, this leaking roof. And about 4 minutes before this podcast was meant to start, boom, lights out, Wi-Fi out, and I'm just standing there in this darkness, just thinking, oh boy, this is not good. So anyway, so I obviously kind of go running out of this room, grab a torch, and I go to my dad, and I'm just like, Dad, you have got to fix this now. And anyway, so we're all scrambling around, getting into the circuit breaker boxes and trying to flip things, and I'm running back upstairs, just thinking, well, do I try and do 4G on this thing, or what the hell do I do? And anyway, like literally about 2 minutes before I'm meant to start this podcast meeting, the Wi-Fi comes back on, and I'm trying to like connect it. so quickly. And obviously, when people will know, if you turn off a Wi-Fi router, it takes like a couple of minutes for it to actually kick in. And those couple of minutes were right before the podcast too. So literally, I probably connected to the internet 1 minute before the podcast. But what I didn't mention is that the lights stayed out, so we couldn't fix the lights, but we got the Wi-Fi on. So I've got these scripts and everything, and they're all paper. I was really prepared for the whole thing. But anyway, so I start this meeting in pitch black darkness, and I just grab my torch, and I've got torch in one hand, script in the right hand, and just sitting in just this void of darkness. And anyway, T Mac joins, and I'm just like, man, I'm just so nervous, and I'm sweating too. I'm sweating buckets because I mean I've just been through this absolute stress situation. So yeah, I mean, we got onto the podcast, and you know what? It went really well. It went to plan, and I was so relieved at the end of it, but it's just not the experience you want for episode one. But yeah, since then, they've gone a lot more smoothly, and it's just been a progression. Very, very. It's just been an amazing experience, to be honest. I've gone from episode 1 to episode 57 now, and I've had so many incredible guests on the show, and it's just blown me away. It's changed my life in so many different ways, and I've just gone with the flow, man. That's the kind of person I am. Like that's just how I work. One morning I can think, I'm going to go for a half marathon today, and with no prior planning or nothing, no real running experience. I went and did it, and one day I think, oh yeah, I should start this kind of business. Well, I'm working on it this afternoon, so I'm pretty spontaneous like that, and that's kind of why the podcast started. And I'm just glad that I've gone from strength to strength for the whole thing, because it's just been a great progression over the last year and a half roughly now, and I just can't wait to see where it goes and who comes onto the show and the kind of people we get to interview. But I can only say thank you to the people listening right now for all the support. But if you're new, then well, you can become a supporter, leave a subscribe, and have a look at some of the past episodes, man. If you need a place to start, I'd say episode 40 with Kegan Gill. It's the greatest story of surviving resilience I've ever heard from a guy who's really not that well known, to be honest, unfortunately. But that's coming later. That's coming later. So yeah, guys, wow, this has been this has been my first little solo Louis storytelling experience. I think it's gone pretty good, man. I enjoyed this a hell of a lot, so I'm going to try and make more of them in future. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening, and I hope that your day either was or is going to be really productive, and keep at it, people. Keep at it, keep grinding, and keep an eye out for the next Talk 4 episodes, because they're going to be coming thick and fast in 2023. Cheers, guys. Have a good one. Speak soon. Bye.